Okay, by request, a video showing the latest iteration of what we do with old acoustic pianos that are not economically worth restoring. This is an old grand piano. It was a no-name grand. We picked up for $50 somewhere. Had a bad pin block, bad sounding bass strings that were broken. It was rusty, no tuning pin torque. Had an okay action and an okay cabinet. So what we did is we removed the plate, strings, pin block. The original soundboard's gone. We reconditioned the piano action, and I did a little touch-up work on the cabinet and kind of gave it a new clear coat. Just kind of breathing a little bit of life back into this old instrument. Now the soundboard we replaced with a much thinner material. It's actually a flooring material that we get from one of the home improvement stores. But it's very thin and it flexes well, which makes it ideal to put a shaker or an exciter on and essentially return the area that was used for the sound generation on this piano, the soundboard, back to that purpose again. So we have a thin board in there with an exciter on it that is one of the ways we generate sound. We also have a bass sub on it. We've got a couple of full range speakers in it, and I've got kind of a high range speaker bar up here to spread the sound out and to give it more of that kind of feel that a piano has, where the sound kind of wraps all the way around you instead of on cheaper keyboards having a left channel and a right channel that you can clearly differentiate between. I'm very, very new with the Pianoteq app. When I first looked into this a few years ago, and I've actually been doing this 5 or 6 years, these conversions, Pianoteq had not yet been made available for the iOS system and the iPad. And about a year ago they did that, and today's actually my first day to play with this. I've got a few hours into using it, and already it is far, far better than anything else I have found. The biggest thing to me is this being able to adjust the velocity curve, and they have a calibration feature that lets you tailor the action, response of the action, based on, I guess, a number of factors. The touch, I don't exactly know how to explain that, but I can make this piano play very, very quietly or very, very loud. And the dynamic response is almost exactly like an acoustic piano. So that's the biggest thing. Instead of being a linear response or something that you can just control a few parameters on, they build in this velocity adjustment here. There's so many other things also as far as the reverb, and I still have not learned the extent to which this works, but I'm extremely, extremely impressed with this off-the-shelf app. It's about $130 when you buy the lowest tier, and what it can do with just a basic MIDI strip, some amplifiers, and some speakers. So I'll play a few notes. I'm not a professional piano technician. I am a professional piano technician. I'm not a professional player by any means, but some of you wanted to hear what it sounds like. Let's hear what it sounds like. I want to point out that it faithfully reproduces every bad note. Now, if you say, oh, that's a little too mellow for me or too bright or whatnot, there are dozens of different sounds, and there are ways to adjust the way those notes. That didn't change. I think I'm in the wrong frequency range for that. So you can see how that can be adjusted to suit your own personal taste, and then you can save it. I have been playing with this particular one here, Steinway D modified, and making little changes here and there to the velocity curve, to the reverb, and to different aspects of it. But I am real impressed with that velocity curve. A lot of digital pianos will take, and you'll see in the specs, it'll say 5 velocity zones or 5 levels. What that means is they take the 127 128, including the 0, divisions of MIDI, and they break them into 5 zones, and if you play a velocity that falls into one of those zones, you get that particular volume, where this one will replicate all of those individual velocities. I'm not even good enough to play those consistently, but you can hear that the expression is much more refined than on almost all digital pianos that I've played, because they break them into those zones for simplicity. But you know, I think I went over the speakers already. And this is the original action that was in the piano. We did recondition it, new key bushings, filed hammers, and that sort of thing. And I'll open this up and do a subsequent video that shows what we did inside. But basically, the hammers strike a rail. There's a MIDI strip underneath the keys, and then we just regulated the piano action just like we would any acoustic piano. There's more that this does. You can transpose, you can change the tuning from A440. There's many better videos that will explain how this functions that go into way more detail than I can go into here. But my goal is simply to take pianos that cannot be economically restored, that have decent cabinets, and keep them from getting thrown away or pushed into a corner and then thrown away later. I mean, if you've been a piano technician very long, you've seen what has happened in the piano market, where otherwise, you know, 20 years ago, instruments that would have been highly prized are basically discarded now. I'm not talking about taking 9-foot Steinways and gutting them and putting this system in there. And I'm certainly not suggesting that this could sit on a stage instead of a 9-foot Steinway. But this can give people who don't like the look of a plasticky keyboard that has a left and right channel that you can definitely hear the differences. We could put this in somebody's house, this particular one, for under $5,000. And I'm making money doing that. And then certainly fancier cabinets with even better sound amplification. We can do even more than that. But from a technician standpoint, with used piano sales just nearly dead in my market area, and piano prices in some cases half what they were just 10 years ago, some of us, perhaps some of you, are not in a market. Your tuning schedule is full, and that's great, and you can keep doing that. But there are some of us that are going to need to adapt if we're going to stay in this business and continue to help customers get good instruments where they can continue learning to play piano and enjoying music in their lives. We're going to have to take a look at things like this in order to keep that dream alive.